morning, Dr. Oppenheimer.
Good morning.
Thank you for applying for the Director of Nuclear Research position. To start, could you tell us about your scientific work and research?
Of course, I'm most known for my work leading the Manhattan Project, which culminated in the creation of the first atomic bombs during World War II. My research at Los Alamos Laboratory focused on developing a chain reaction that would release immense energy from the splitting of uranium and plutonium nuclei. This was a landmark in the study of nuclear fission and opened the door to understanding energy at an atomic level. It combined theoretical physics with cutting edge engineering.
It was certainly a breakthrough, but it must have come with immense pressure. How did you manage to lead with such large team during those turbulent years?
Hmm. Well, it wasn't easy. We were all acutely aware of the stakes. Many of us had fled fascism in Europe, so there was a strong moral urgency to what we were doing. But managing scientists is different from managing a regular workforce. There were some of the brightest minds in the world, and they didn't always agree with each other or with me. I had to balance encouraging may I say, their creativity with maintaining focus on the task at hand, and of course, there was the immense pressure from the government to deliver results quickly.
Given the intensity of the work, did it affect your personal life? There have been stories about your relationships and even rumors of external affairs.
Yes, well, my personal life was most certainly very complicated. I never shied away from the fact that I was deeply passionate, not just about science, but about life, arts, and yes, relationships. But those stories tend to distract from the larger picture. I admit I was not the most faithful or considerate partner, but to reduce my entire legacy to those aspects of my life would be unfair. So the work we did was unprecedented, and the personal sacrifices we made were considerable.
Some say that those relationships, particularly with people who were considered politically suspicious, might have contributed to your later security issues. Do you think your personal choices had an impact on your clearance being revoked?
There's no doubts that my associations and my choices were scrutinized. I was involved with people that were politically left leaning and raised an eyebrows in the context of Cold War America. But I believe my opposition to the hydrogen and my hydrogen bomb and my calls for arms control were the real reasons behind the revocation of my clearance. In those times, questioning the direction of national defense strategies was considered a threat and it was considered treason.
So, Dr. Oppenheimer, you mentioned your opposition to the hydrogen bomb earlier, and we know that Edward Teller was a key figure in that conflict. How do you feel about the way he testified against you?
It was painful, no question about it. Edward and I once had worked closely together, but we had different ideas about where nuclear science should go. His testimony at my hearing was a betrayal, but in retrospect, it was part of a larger conflict. He believed that my pursuit of the hydrogen bomb was an inevitability of human progress. I saw it as a line we should not cross. I think our disagreement reflected two very different views of what science should be used for.
And now, Dr. Oppenheimer, looking back, do you think you were right in opposing the hydrogen bomb? With the Cold War behind us, do you feel vindicated in your stance?
History has vindicated some of my concerns, but the arms race happened anyway, and we now live in a world where the threat of nuclear wars still remains. I didn't oppose technological advancement for the sake of it. I felt that we needed to be more cautious. Perhaps if more voices had been heard, And if more voices had been heeded, we could have avoided the escalation that followed. But that is history.
Some say that beyond your scientific contributions, your role as a public intellectual, especially after the bomb, shaped the way the world thinks about science and morality. Did you ever see yourself in that role, or did it happen by circumstances?
Well, I certainly did not start out to become a public intellectual. I was first and foremost a physicist. But the events of the Manhattan Project and the bombings thrust me into that role. After Hiroshima and Nagasaki, I realized that we had unleashed something far greater than just a scientific discovery. It became impossible to separate science from its moral and political implications. Whether I liked it or not, I had to engage those questions publicly.
So, Dr. Oppenheimer, there are many today who view bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki as unnecessary and even as war crimes. Do you wrestle with that legacy of yours?
It's something I have thought about every day since 1945. The bombings brought immense suffering. I was part of creating that weapon, but I did not make the decision to use it. Nonetheless, I do bear some responsibility. We believed at the time that it would end the war, and the power of the bomb without using it on cities filled with civilians. If I had known then what I know now, I may have advocated for a different path.
That must be a heavy burden to carry. With the passage of time, do you feel at peace with the choices you made?
I I wouldn't say that I am at peace. I tried to make sense of it, as many others who were involved, but some things don't lend themselves to easy resolutions. I've come to terms with the fact that our work saved lives by ending the war, but it also created a world where the specter of nuclear destruction hangs over us. That's a complex legacy, and I think that it will take generations to fully understand.
Now that some of your work is considered controversial or even flawed by modern standards, how do you feel about it? For example, some aspects of nuclear weapons technology have evolved significantly since your time.
The field has indeed advanced. Many of the theoretical foundations that we laid down have now evolved, especially with the understanding of quantum mechanics and particle physics. However, what was most flawed about our work wasn't the science, it was a rush to apply. Today, we have a much better understanding of nuclear energy and its peaceful uses, like its medical or its energy purposes. But the darker legacy of nuclear weapons still remains, and that is something that I hope future scientists will continue to grapple with and will deal with it much better.
Thank you for your time, Dr. Oppenheimer. We would now like to call Mr. Neil Bora, who was a key significant figure at the same time, to get another perspective on your work. Good morning, Dr. Bora. Thank you for joining us. We would like to get your thoughts on Dr. Oppenheimer's work, particularly his leadership during the Manhattan Project and his stance on the hydrogen bomb.
Well, it's a pleasure to be here. Robert was an extraordinary scientist, a brilliant mind. His leadership at Los Alamos was indispensable, and without him, the Manhattan Project may not have succeeded. However, I always believed in the importance of openness and international cooperation, especially in nuclear research. Robert's work on the bomb was shrouded in secrecy, and that worried me. After the war, I pushed for the sharing of nuclear technology under international oversight, while Robert was entangled in national security concerns. As for the hydrogen bomb, I agreed with him. It was a weapon too powerful to be developed, and I share his concerns about the arms race that followed.
So, Sir Niels, do you think Oppenheimer's moral concerns about nuclear weapons were valid, given political context of the Cold War?
Absolutely. The Cold War created an environment where scientific decisions were heavily influenced by political pressures. Robert's opposition to the hydrogen bomb wasn't just about science, It was about what kind of world we wanted to live in. Unfortunately, his warnings were overshadowed by the desire of military superiority. History has shown us that unchecked technological advancement without ethical reflection can lead to catastrophic consequences.
Thank you for your time, Dr. Bora. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
No worries.
Hello, Dr. Oppenheimer. It's good to have you back. After reviewing your scientific achievements, ethical concerns, and the peer review,
We have decided to offer you the position of Director of Nuclear Research. Your contributions to both science and public policy are invaluable, and we believe your expertise and ethical considerations are crucial in guiding future generations. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm honored by your decision. I hope that in this role I can continue to advocate for responsible scientific advancement, and I hope that we have a wonderful relationship in Habib University. Thank you for having me as part of your team.
That's wonderful, Dr. Oppenheimer. We wish to see you as soon as possible. Thank you.